So, this is a movie that can only be described as a product of its time. Every movie at this time was trying to be the next big action blockbuster, and of course Antonio Banderas had his hand in the action pot. This is 2003's Once Upon a Time in Mexico. Spoiler alert, while I might be giving you my opinion on the film, that's no substitute for watching it for yourself. Links to the film are in the description. And for those of you that need to hear this, this is just a movie. All stunts are for the sake of story and shouldn't be attempted on your own. No animals were harmed in the making of this film. Viewer discretion is advised. We open with Sands waiting in a restaurant, and he seems very impatient. Suddenly, Bellini comes in, and he sits across from Sands. It turns out that Bellini is the one that recommended a guitar player that can take out a whole town. He tells Sands about a massacre that this guitar player was responsible for, and he talks about Marquez. In a flashback, we see that Marquez tried taking out Mariachi, but Mariachi has his famous guitar. When he pulls out his guitar, he starts playing, and the guys in the cantina laugh. They stop laughing when Mariachi uses his guitar to shoot rockets at everyone. Bellini swears that that's just a tall tale, though. And we see that Mariachi takes out everyone except for Marquez. When it comes time to put Marquez down, it turns out that he's out of bullets. As Mariachi looks to be caught, Carolina shows up, and she takes out the remaining bad guys. It turns out that she was with Marquez, but she was also with Mariachi. When it comes down to it, Carolina shoots Marquez and leaves it with Mariachi. It turns out that Marquez doesn't die though. Bellini doesn't know what happened after that, but he thinks that Marquez tracked Mariachi down. Bellini assures Sands that Mariachi is the one he wants if he's still alive. Sands pays Bellini the 10 grand he asked for, and he leaves Sands there. Once Sands is alone, he takes off his prosthetic arm that hid the gun he had in his real arm, and he goes on his way. Elsewhere in town, an elderly man takes a fresh guitar from another vendor, and he takes it to Mariachi to play in the town square. Suddenly, armed men arrive, and Kukui asks the old guitar makers about Mariachi. The old men try to tell him that they don't know who he's talking about, and Kukui has his men shoot the poor old man. As Kukui goes to put a gun to the other man's head, Mariachi whistles to get his attention. Little late for that at this point. Mariachi comes down to Kukui. Kukui tells him how honored he is to be in his presence, and they take him away. At the Barrillo estate, Billy warns a newcomer to stay away from Barrillo, but he doesn't speak English. He takes the potential employee to meet with Barrillo, and he gets inspected. Barrillo tells him that he's been hired. Elsewhere, Sands goes to the cantina to meet with Kukui and Mariachi. The best quote in the world is right here. "Are you Mexican or Mexicant? I don't care how old this movie is, that is superb dialogue." Sands goes to speak with Mariachi, and he tells him that he wants him to kill someone. He eats some pork, and since it's so good, he tells Mariachi he's going to kill the cook. But he wants Mariachi to kill Marquez. After Mariachi leaves with information on someone to meet, Sands heads into the kitchen and shoots the cook. He's a man of his word. You can't say he isn't. Sands is just epic, and he knows it too. At the AFN, Ajedrez tries to volunteer for every special detail, but everyone else gets picked. Eventually, one of the teams tells her to join them. Later, the Presidente goes on camera to talk about how Barrillo is a threat that needs to be taken down. His advisor tries to talk to him about not going against Barrillo, but Presidente thinks justice will prevail. Mariachi sits and plays his guitar while he waits for his contact. Seriously, this movie was sold on Johnny Depp being somewhat normal but still himself, and Antonio Banderas playing the guitar while looking forlorn. While he plays the guitar, he has a flashback to when he was in bed with Carolina. He suddenly notices that they're chained together, and soldiers start to open fire on them everywhere in the hotel. The two of them run for an escape, and after a daring descent down the side of the building, they end up falling on a bus that runs into a gasoline tanker. After coming back to the present, Mariachi heads to the church to ask for forgiveness for what he's about to do. Just then, his contact comes in, and it turns out to be Sands dressed as a priest. Once the priest leaves, armed men shoot the confessional, but Mariachi escapes to the second story. His exit strategy turns out to be hitting one of the men with the guitar to pull out a sawed-off shotgun. After killing the armed men, he grabs another gun and keeps taking people down. Once all of the men are killed, Sands calls Mariachi, and he tells him that he passed the test. He tells him to assemble his team, and he starts walking the street. A kid on a bike rides up to Sands, and he sells him some gum. Then, Sands meets with Jorge, who is retired FBI, and Sands tells him that he wants all the info he has on Barrillo and his cooperation. Sands is out here getting more done in 2 or 3 days than most people do their entire career. Of course, we go from that to a club with Enrique Iglesias seducing women. And he still has them all. That tells you when the movie was done. All I hear is Balamos in my head now. As Lorenzo finishes up his song, he runs into Mariachi, who's there to pick up his infamous guitar. Upstairs, he finds Fideo. and he realizes that they really haven't changed since the last time they were with each other. Mariachi heads out and tells Lorenzo that he's going to need both of them soon. Meanwhile, Sans meets with the advisor at a bullfight, and he tries to make sure that he's on his side of things. The advisor tells Sans about a perfect event coming up, and he tells Sans that this won't be the first president that he's betrayed. Mariachi gets to his room, and he has a flashback of the wedding that he and Carolina had, and their chains were finally cut. Then he turns to his guitar case on the bed and opens it up as the memories keep rolling in. All of a sudden, she's pregnant? I know there are more entries in this series, but I feel like there's a lot missing here. Later, Sans meets with Bellini in the cantina again, and we can see that he has his fake arm on and a gun trained on Bellini. Suddenly, the waitress dumps hot coffee on his fake arm, and now Sans has to shoot Bellini. Sans then disposes of the body, and him not taking off his fake arm for the whole drive is such a Johnny Depp character thing to do. What I didn't see coming was Bellini hiding a baggie in his eye hole. After getting rid of Bellini's body, Sans heads to a hotel room where he hands over the baggie to Ajedrez, and he tells her his plan for bringing down the Barrillo cartel, Marquez, and the Presidente's plan. Sans talks about how he's simply there to set the spark for the revolution, and he's going to walk away with millions of pesos as he waits for Ajedrez to join him. She thinks that he's crazy, but he assures her that the crazy will work out. Meanwhile, Jorge takes out his old gun and retired FBI badge, and he heads out to start his quest to bring Barrillo down. Sans calls Mariachi to make sure that he's ready, and Mariachi tells him that he noticed Cuqui is following him. Then Sans gives him his next target, and Mariachi heads to the mansion with Lorenzo and Fideo. The advisor lets them in, and they start to develop a plan. Luckily, the Mariachis can actually play the guitar. It would be embarrassing if it was just a cool title. And here goes Antonio Banderas playing the guitar all over again. This movie definitely started a lot of obsessions with Spanish guitar music. Later that evening, Mariachi tells Lorenzo that all he wants out of this score is revenge, and there'll be enough money for him in the end. The next day, Sans gets a call from Jorge, and he gets a briefing about everything that Jorge has found out. Jorge tells him that Barrillo definitely has a medical procedure happening the next day, and Sans tells him to get as close as he can. Jorge decides to follow Billy, but he quickly realizes that he's being set up. That's not enough to deter him though. He heads to Billy with an empty gun, but then he decides to talk to Billy first. As he shows off his badge, Billy knows why he's here, and he tells Jorge that he actually wants to get caught and taken back to the States. Elsewhere, Mariachi goes to meet with Cuqui, but he finds out that Cuqui has decided to stop working for Sans. Cuqui plans to turn in Mariachi to collect the price on his head, but Mariachi has other plans. Mariachi has a shootout in the middle of the plaza, and this quickly turns into a high-speed chase through cacti and back alleys. With a smooth move, Mariachi changes over to a pink beauty of a car that he uses to ram into a roadblock. Suddenly, Cuqui shows up and shoots Mariachi with a tranq dart. Back at Barrillo's estate, Billy brings Cuqui to meet with Barrillo, and they talk about how he managed to bring in Mariachi. Cuqui thinks that he's about to be rewarded, but Billy pops up and strangles him instead. I guess he's a Mexicant now. Sorry, couldn't help it. While Mariachi dreams, he has a flashback of Carolina and their daughter playing in the village, and Marquez shows up and shoots them all. When Mariachi wakes up, he's in a chair, but he quickly crushes the nuts of the guys about to torture him. When Marquez finds out that Mariachi has escaped, he shoots the messenger. Back in town, Lorenzo and Fideo are doing target practice, but then Mariachi calls him to tell them that the plan is commencing. Elsewhere, Barrillo's entourage is being stopped at one of the Presidente's convoys, and while they decide to find another way, Barrillo talks about how he plans to get rid of the Presidente. Later, Barrillo goes in for his medical procedure, and we see that he's going in for facial reconstruction surgery. Jorge waits outside, and he watches as AFN rushes into the building. Jorge rushes in to follow, and he finds dead bodies littering the hallway. He also finds what he thinks to be Barrillo's body after the face was peeled off. Just as he runs into the real Barrillo with bandages wrapping his face, Ajedrez shows up and knocks Jorge out. Across town, Sans is panicking as it seems his plans are dissolving around him. He heads into a restaurant as he keeps trying to reach his people, but soon Ajedrez shows up with more men of her own. They inject him with something to put him to sleep, and a parade for Dia de los Muertos starts outside. When Sans wakes up, he finds Ajedrez is sitting with Barrillo, and he finds out that she's actually his daughter. Barrillo points out that Sans has only seen too much, so they take out his eyes. Meanwhile, Presidente hears explosions outside, and the advisor shows up to tell him that Marquez is attacking the city. The advisor tells him that they're going to fortify the mansion. Meanwhile, Sans is let go with no eyes left, and he's handling this extremely well. Ridiculously well, in fact. He's already got heightened senses considering the fact that he's only been blind for about 10 minutes. When the Chickle Boy shows up, Sans stops him and pays him to be his eyes. Chickle Boy notices that someone is following them, and Sans gives him a gun to kill him. Chickle Boy can't do it, so Sans decides to try and shoot the stalker with his lack of eyesight hindering him. It doesn't work at first, but somehow he manages to kill the guy. Meanwhile, Mariachi and his crew are waiting for Marquez, who's making his way through the streets of town. In a warehouse, Jorge gets tied up, while Ajedrez goes to handle business with the revolution going on. Jorge's guards leave him with Billy. Back in town, Fideo and Lorenzo get involved with the revolution, and Sans takes a taxi to the edge of the mob. The rebels are handy. They literally mounted a machine gun on a taco stand and rolled it through town. That's phenomenal. Lorenzo and Fideo handle the military outside, and they make use of Lorenzo's flamethrower guitar case and remote-controlled case bomb. In the mansion, the advisor arrives to escort the Presidente away, but they run right into soldiers that the advisor was going to hand him over to. Luckily, Mariachi and his crew come in and take out the advisor and guards. Outside, Chickle Boy leads Sans to the front of the mansion, and some guards come out to greet them. Sans sends Chickle Boy away, and Sans manages to take out one of the guards. The remaining guard shoots him in the leg, but when Sans hears where he is, he finishes him off too. Inside the mansion, Mariachi switches clothes with Presidente, and he stays behind to wait for Marquez. Marquez storms the mansion, but when he comes face to face with Mariachi, he sends his men away. Marquez asks Mariachi what became of him and his family, and Mariachi tells him that they all died. Then, he blows off his shins. Okay, so I'm going to mention another show here. In King of the Hill, whenever Cotton talks about how he lost his shins, this scene is exactly what I think about. That's it. Meanwhile, Barrillo and Ajedrez come in to find Marquez dead, but she heads down to the street to finish off Sans. Just then, Billy brings Jorge in, and in a quick exchange, everyone gets shot and killed aside from Jorge, Mariachi, and the Chihuahua. See? I told you no animals get harmed. And Sans is still alive and waiting for Chickle Boy. That's a win. Jorge and Sans say goodbye to each other, and Presidente walks the street with Lorenzo and Fideo until his limo shows up to pick him up. Then Lorenzo and Fideo go their separate ways. Mariachi goes back to his village to play his guitar and think about Carolina. Seriously, go listen to the soundtrack right now. Pure gold. Then the credits roll. This movie's pure gold. That's it. If you want to see the other two in the series, let me know in the comments. As for this film, give it a shot. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more like this one. Comment what you think I should watch next, and I'll see you in the next video.